Weird, but I would literally channel Leonidas. I would almost do these meditations where I would feel him coming into me. But I go, can I just try another one? That moment comes and I just go, this is Sparta!
What if I told you that the most famous war cry in movie history almost never happened? What if I told you that Gerard Butler was so embarrassed by his costume that he wanted to run and hide? And what if I told you that the legendary movie 300 was filmed in just 61 days without a single real battle scene or location? Today, we're diving deep into the secrets that Gerard Butler finally revealed about one of the most brutal movie productions in Hollywood history. Trust me, after you hear these shocking truths, you'll never watch 300 the same way again. Picture this. It's 2007 and millions of moviegoers are watching Gerard Butler roar, "This is Sparta." On the big screen, they see a powerful king leading 300 warriors into an epic battle. They see muscles, blood, and glory, but what they don't see is the man behind the character, barely able to walk from pain, his body covered in real injuries, his mind pushed to the very edge of breaking. What they don't see is a movie set that looked more like a hospital emergency room than a film studio. Gerard Butler didn't just play King Leonidas. He became him, and the transformation nearly destroyed him. For years, Butler kept quiet about what really happened behind the scenes. But now, the truth is finally coming out, and it's more shocking than anything you saw in the movie. Let's start with something that will blow your mind. Every single day during the filming of 300, someone got hurt badly enough to go to the hospital. Butler himself said it best in a brutally honest interview. He remembered how he would turn around and see a guy down with a spear dangerously close to his eye. Then he'd turn back and find another actor on the ground with a broken ankle. It wasn't just a movie set. It was a war zone. The weapons might have been dulled for safety, but they were still real metal weapons that could cause serious damage. In one terrifying moment, a spear actually pierced straight toward an actor's eye. Can you imagine the horror of that moment? In another scene, an actor fell wrong during a stunt and snapped his ankle so badly that the sound echoed across the set. These weren't small accidents that could be fixed with a Band-Aid. These were serious injuries that sent people to the emergency room. But the injuries didn't stop there. The movie had scenes filmed in Iceland, where the actors had to jump into freezing cold ocean water. Butler and his fellow warriors suffered from hypothermia, so severe that their bodies had to be tied down to prevent the waves from sweeping them away. Imagine being so cold that you can't control your own body, yet still having to act like a fierce Spartan warrior. The scenes you see in the movie lasted only a few minutes, but the actors dealt with the painful effects for weeks afterward. Butler even accidentally broke his co-star's arm during one of the fight scenes. He was swinging his sword, trying to make the fight look real, when he struck too hard and too fast. The sound of the bone breaking was something that haunted him for months. This wasn't acting anymore. It was real violence with real consequences. Every night, the hospital became an unwanted meeting place for the cast and crew. Butler described a feeling of complete exhaustion, both physically and mentally, at the end of each shooting day. His body was falling apart, but he knew that giving up wasn't an option. To truly become King Leonidas, he had to accept the pain and suffering that came with it. But the injuries were just the beginning. The real torture started months before the cameras ever rolled. Butler spent 7 straight months preparing for the role, training 6 hours every single day with no breaks, no rest days, and no mercy. This wasn't your typical Hollywood workout routine, where actors do a few push-ups and call it a day. This was military-level training, designed to break weak men and forge warriors. The man in charge of this torture was Mark Twight, a trainer so intense and unforgiving that actors nicknamed him the Destroyer. Twight combined martial arts, heavy weightlifting, CrossFit, and real sword fighting into a training program that pushed human bodies beyond their limits. His philosophy was simple and terrifying. Either you become a warrior or you break trying. Butler's daily routine was pure hell. High-intensity CrossFit workouts that left him gasping for air. Massive weightlifting sessions that tore his muscles apart. Endless circuits that pushed him until he collapsed. Stage sword fights that felt more real than the actual movie battles. The goal wasn't just to look like a warrior on screen. The goal was to become a warrior in real life. Even during filming, The torture continued, between takes. While other actors might rest or grab a snack, Butler and his co-stars were forced back into heavy lifting, pull-ups, and explosive jumping exercises. They needed functional strength, not just pretty muscles. They had to be able to swing heavy swords for hours without getting tired. They had to charge into battle scenes without gasping for breath. They needed to look like bronze statues but move like deadly assassins. The price Butler paid was enormous. Tendinitis attacked his joints like fire. His hips hurt so badly that some days he could barely walk from his trailer to the set. His shoulder was torn and damaged so severely that lifting his arm became agony. There were mornings when he woke up completely numb from pain, but he still dragged himself out of bed because King Leonidas could never show weakness. Butler's fellow actors went through the same punishment. They flipped giant tires until their hands bled. They sprinted through obstacle courses until they threw up. They cranked out hundreds of push-ups and pull-ups until their bodies completely shut down. The martial arts training was so intense and repetitive that sometimes they couldn't tell the difference between practice and real fighting. One cast member confessed that this vicious cycle never ended. During the day, they fought brutal battles on camera. At night, they trained to maintain their Spartan bodies. Pain layered upon pain, with their bodies never getting a chance to fully heal before being thrown back into the torture chamber. Butler later admitted something incredible. He said that this constant agony was actually what made his performance so powerful. He couldn't have played King Leonidas truthfully if his body wasn't being ripped apart every single day. The pain became part of the character. The suffering became the source of his strength. When the famous 300 workout was officially released to the public, it became legendary around the world. Thousands of people tried it, and most quit halfway through. Only after Butler revealed the truth did people understand what really turned him into the Spartan king. It wasn't just muscle. It was spirit. It was a willingness to sacrifice everything and turn suffering into glory. But here's something that will shock you even more. Before 300, Gerard Butler was practically unknown. He had appeared in a few movies like The Phantom of the Opera, but Hollywood barely noticed him. He was like a talented actor standing outside the gates of fame, always waiting for his big break. That break came like an explosion in 2007 when Butler put on the blood-red cape of Sparta. He didn't just play Leonidas. He became Leonidas, a king who emerged from the shadows of history carrying fury and authority that silenced the entire world. When he roared, "This is Sparta," it wasn't just acting. It was a declaration of war against Hollywood itself. The success of 300 transformed Butler from a forgotten actor into a global superstar overnight. Filmmakers suddenly saw him as someone who could carry big-budget movies. Audiences saw a new action hero. The press called him the face of masculinity's comeback in cinema. Butler was no longer searching for opportunities. He had become the opportunity. But what made his journey even more amazing was his incredible versatility. Right after screaming on the battlefield, he starred in P.S. I Love You, a gentle romantic movie with Hilary Swank. Fans were stunned. Could a blood-soaked warrior really transform into a sweet, loving boyfriend? This contrast proved that Butler wasn't just a one-trick pony. He could do anything. Now, here's the secret behind that legendary "This is Sparta" moment that changed movie history. In the original script, that line was written as a simple, cold statement, just a basic declaration of defiance. But Gerard Butler had other plans. In the moment of becoming Leonidas, he suddenly roared the line with every ounce of muscle, spirit, and pent-up rage he had inside him. It was a scream that wasn't in the script and wasn't in the director's instructions. It was pure, unexpected emotion exploding from his soul. On set, that roar shattered the air like thunder. Crew members who were used to serious. Professional takes burst out laughing in shock and amazement at Butler's intense performance. Some thought he had gone completely overboard. But director Zack Snyder saw something special. He nodded and said, "Yes, you overdid it, but it was brilliant." And just like that, a spontaneous moment of raw emotion was preserved and became the centerpiece of the entire film. When the movie hit theaters, "This is Sparta" was no longer just a line of dialogue. It became thunder in the hearts of audiences everywhere. Combined with a visual of Leonidas kicking the Persian messenger into the bottomless pit, it transformed into a cultural earthquake. Audiences jumped to their feet in movie theaters, shouting along. The internet grabbed it and created endless memes, videos, and variations. It became everything from social media jokes to symbols of defiance and raw determination. Butler didn't just deliver a line. He unleashed primal energy and authority that shot the character straight into the collective memory of millions of people around the world. But how did he prepare for such an intense moment? Butler chose a spiritual path to becoming Leonidas, and this is something most fans never knew. He practiced daily meditation to get inside the mind of a king who was willing to lead 300 warriors straight into certain death. For him, it wasn't enough to just act like a warrior in front of the camera. He wanted to live inside the thoughts and feelings of someone ready to sacrifice everything. Meditation helped him control his breathing, but more importantly, it opened a dark chamber in his mind where he could touch both the calm serenity of someone ready to die and the fierce rage of a cornered lion. This spiritual preparation didn't stop with the mind. Butler threw his body into danger by performing many of his own stunts instead of using stunt doubles. For him, there was no room for fake moves or safe alternatives. Every sword strike, every fall, every battle had to be real, had to hurt, and had to be dangerous. Butler believed this was the only way Leonidas could exist authentically on screen. The audience needed to see real sweat, real blood, and real fear in the character's eyes. In one crucial battle scene, Butler poured every ounce of his energy into the fight, later describing it as the peak of adrenaline in his entire career. Each sword swing and thunderous roar blurred the line between actor and character until nobody could tell where Gerard Butler ended and King Leonidas began. This intense method acting often left Butler staggering off the set, battered and bruised, yet with his eyes burning brighter than ever. It was this total devotion that transformed the performance in 300 into something far beyond simple entertainment. He didn't just memorize lines and scream the famous battle cry. He placed himself into the harshest mental space imaginable, that of a man leading his warriors into death without a moment's hesitation. But here's something that will completely blow your mind. The entire movie 300 was filmed in just 61 days without a single real location or set. Those epic Greek deserts you saw, completely fake. The massive cliffs of Thermopylae, digital effects. The endless armies of warriors, most of them were computer-generated. The whole movie was shot inside foreclosed studio walls in Montreal against nothing but green screens. Butler and his fellow actors spent 61 straight days fighting imaginary enemies, screaming at empty air, and pretending to see massive armies that didn't exist. Every single environment, from the city of Sparta to the Persian king's throne room, was created later using computer effects. For the actors, this was a psychological nightmare. Lena Headey, who played Queen Gorgo, admitted to feeling completely empty while acting in a void. Gerard Butler often laughed bitterly at the absurdity of it all. On screen, he was the mighty King Leonidas leading 300 warriors into glorious battle. But on set, he was just a man in a cape, holding a plastic sword and screaming into endless green nothingness. The time pressure made everything worse. They had to film the entire movie in script order with no breaks and no second chances. Every scene and every sword fight had to be perfect because one mistake could ruin everything once the digital effects were added later. When director Zack Snyder called cut, it didn't just interrupt the scene. It cut through the actors' already fragile patience and concentration. The biggest challenge wasn't physical pain. It was psychological torture. Imagine having to scream, fight, and picture thousands of enemies attacking you when in reality, there were only a handful of extras in weird green outfits running around. To keep their emotions alive and believable, Butler and his fellow actors had to trick their own minds into believing they were living in a world more dangerous than any real battle. But something amazing came out of this emptiness and suffering. From that invisible void, Snyder and his team painted a universe of blood, steel, and glory that looked more real than reality itself. 300 wasn't just a product of visual effects. It became proof of the extraordinary mental strength of humans trapped inside a warehouse, fighting exhaustion and emptiness to give birth to a legend. The brotherhood formed during this ordeal was unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. Butler wasn't just the star of the movie. He became the commander of a real army on set. Around him stood Lena Headey, David Wenham, Dominic West, Michael Fassbender, and dozens of other warriors who weren't just co-stars. They became true comrades, a reborn Spartan army inside 4 studio walls. From the very first day, the entire cast was thrown into a punishing boot camp together. They endured the infamous 300 workout as a group, a brutal routine that destroyed muscles, left lungs gasping, and made bodies tremble with exhaustion. But amid all the sweat and groans, something beautiful was born: unbreakable loyalty and friendship. Butler said it best: "We fueled each other like a real army. When one person collapsed from exhaustion, the others dragged him back up. When someone trembled and couldn't push through another exercise, shouts of encouragement thundered like war drums. When the lights went out, they ate together, laughed together, and shared their bruises and pain like true brothers." This bond was tested even harder during the hell of filming. The blazing heat from the studio lights pouring down on their heavy armor, the mental stress of acting in front of lifeless green screens, and the endless repetition of grueling scenes pushed everyone to their breaking points. In those darkest moments, they leaned on each other to survive and continue. The cast didn't just train together. They lived as a true army, sharing meals, sleeping routines, and battling the brutal set conditions as one united force. Their off-screen friendship became the fuel that created their on-screen brotherhood. That's why the Spartans in the movie weren't just individual warriors, but a single, unbreakable unit ready to die for one another until their last breath. When 300 was released in March 2007, nobody expected what would happen next. Hollywood studios had scoffed at the unusual film, predicting it would be a complete failure. With a modest budget of just $60 million and no major A-list stars, it seemed like a risky gamble that would crash and burn. But on its opening weekend, $70 million exploded at the box office like thunder. Hollywood was stunned. This weird, violent movie had crushed every expectation and was marching toward a worldwide gross of $456 million. But 300 didn't just conquer the box office. It became a cultural phenomenon that changed everything. Audiences went crazy with "This is Sparta" memes flooding the internet. The harsh, sculpted physiques of the cast ignited a global fitness movement. Gyms everywhere rushed to create training programs inspired by the movie. GQ magazine called it a modern Spartan ritual, and suddenly a new standard of strength and masculinity was born. But there's one more secret that left Gerard Butler blushing with embarrassment. His costume as King Leonidas consisted of nothing more than a flowing red cape and a tiny leather loincloth that exposed almost his entire body. Butler confessed that his first feeling when putting on the costume was pure embarrassment. He wanted to hide and disappear. He half-joked with the crew, saying, "One cold breeze and I'll curl up like a shrimp." Behind the laughter was crushing pressure to maintain a perfect physique, with every muscle carved sharp like a Greek statue. He recalled the first day of try on the costume, wearing only the leather pieces, sneakers, and black socks. The whole crew looked at him like he had wandered out of a bizarre costume party. But then something magical happened. When Butler put on the full costume with the flowing red cape, he realized it didn't make him feel naked and vulnerable. Instead, it gave him a kind of royal power. He began to believe that the costume itself was transforming him into a true king. On the freezing cold set in Montreal, the cast was nearly naked in the bitter winds with nothing but Spartan leather scraps and their red capes to keep them warm. The wind cut through their bodies like knives, making them tremble, yet their eyes still had ablaze with warrior intensity. They reminded each other constantly, Spartans are not allowed to show weakness, not even for a second. The red cape wasn't just a piece of clothing. It became a psychological weapon. When Butler stood among hundreds of other warriors, all eyes locked on him. Every step, every sword swing seemed fueled by that flowing red fabric. Butler once said, "I realized the cape made me breathe like a king. It turned me into the center of strength and power." But the provocative costume was also a merciless trap. One extra ounce of fat, one slack muscle, and everything would be exposed under the harsh HD cameras. That's why the gym next to the set became daily hell for Butler and the entire cast. They trained until sweat poured like rain, because they knew if they slipped even once, The Spartan outfit would betray them without mercy. Then something strange and wonderful happened. Butler became addicted to the sensation of wearing the costume. What had once filled him with fear and embarrassment became a source of incredible power. He said, "When I stood in that costume, I was no longer Gerard Butler. I was Leonidas, and I was ready to roar in the face of anyone who dared doubt it." Here's one final mind-blowing fact that most fans never knew. 300 went down in cinema history as one of the bloodiest films ever made, with battle scenes that drenched the screen in crimson and massacres that haunted audiences for years. But the shocking truth is that the entire production only used about 7 liters of fake blood during filming. Everything else, all those thousands of blood splatters spraying across the battlefield, every droplet sliding down swords and spears, was created using computer effects after filming was complete. This demonstrated the incredible vision of director Zack Snyder and his team. They didn't rely on cheap fake blood to create realism. Instead, they painted a digital massacre where each drop of blood was like a brushstroke on a canvas soaked in violence. It was this computer-generated blood that gave 300 its tragic grandeur and set it completely apart from conventional war movies. It was raw and terrifyingly beautiful at the same time. Even small details like Leonidas's helmet were carefully designed for maximum impact. In real history, all Spartan warriors wore similar bronze helmets. But in the movie, only Leonidas was given a helmet with a distinctive crest. This wasn't just to make him look more royal. It was a clever way to ensure the audience could always identify Butler among a sea of muscular Spartans in red cloaks. Without that unique helmet, how could viewers follow the king leading them into battle? For years after 300, Gerard Butler was no longer just another action star. The film defined him and etched his name into cinema history as the immortal Leonidas, but also created a challenge. Could any actor ever escape the overwhelming shadow of such an iconic role? Butler proved he could by constantly pushing himself across different types of movies and genres. Yet the question still echoes. Without 300, would the world ever have known Gerard Butler as the superstar he became? The truth is, 300 wasn't just a movie. It was a testament to human endurance, sacrifice, and the power of never giving up. Gerard Butler and his fellow actors didn't just perform roles. They lived them, suffered for them, and bled for them. They turned a simple story into an immortal legend that still inspires people around the world today. So now you know the real story behind 300. You know about the daily hospital visits, the 7 months of torture disguised as training, the psychological nightmare of acting against green screens, and the brotherhood forged in pain and sweat. You know that the most famous war cry in movie history was never supposed to happen, and that the bloodiest movie ever made barely used any real blood at all. These aren't just behind-the-scenes facts. They're proof that sometimes the greatest art comes from the greatest sacrifice. Gerard Butler didn't just play a king. He became one through sheer willpower, dedication, and the refusal to accept anything less than perfection. If this incredible story amazed you as much as it amazed me, then you absolutely need to hit that like button right now. Share this video with anyone who loves movies, action, or incredible stories of human determination. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell, because we're constantly uncovering more shocking secrets and untold stories from your favorite films. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we reveal next. The world of cinema is full of incredible secrets, and we're just getting started on this amazing journey together.